Hi, this is Gary with MacMost Now. On today's episode, let's look at Mac preference files. So when you use apps in Mac OS X, they use preference files to save information between times you run the program. For instance, you could set options in the application preferences and it will remember them by saving them in the preference file. Other things may be saved there as well, like the last actions that you did or window positions, all sorts of information. So this all gets saved in a specific location. Let me show you where that is and what's saved there. So preference files are saved in your library folder. In Lion, to get to the library folder, you would use the Go menu. Library folder doesn't appear there, but if you hold down the Option key, it does. And select it, and you get a Finder window with the library folder in it. Now notice the location of the library folder. If I Control or Command click on the top there, I see that it's on my hard drive under Users and my username. Now there's also a library folder at the main hard drive level, but the one you want to go to is the one in your Users and your username folder. So in here there are a bunch of different folders, and one of them is called Preferences. Let's go down into that. Now in that we've got some folders, but we also have some files by themselves. A typical preference file starts with com dot and the company name dot the application name. It's kind of the opposite of a URL on the web. And you can easily see there's my address book file. The one that's just .plist, like that, is the preference file. There's the one for calculator app, Final Cut, all sorts of things here. There's iCal, and you'll find just about every application. Now if you want to look into these, then you can try to open them in a text editor, but you're going to get something that's garbled because they're not just plain text files. So for instance, here's what the numbers one looks like. You can see there's some stuff there, but not really something you can read. Let me show you what it really looks like. I can do this because I have the developer tools installed, and this will open a special application that will allow me to view these preference files. And you can see here that I've got different values for different properties. I can scroll down and I can get a pretty good idea of what each one stands for. But the general idea is you're not supposed to mess with them this way. Let the application handle your preferences and don't try to manually change them. So why am I showing you this? Well, there's two things that you can do with the preference files here. The main one is when you're having trouble with an application, you may want to trash the preference file, thus forcing the application to restart with all the default preferences. So for instance, if I was having trouble with numbers, I may want to actually throw this away. Or if you like, just move it out of this folder, say onto the desktop, and then run numbers, and then you'll create a new preference file with all the default settings. And if everything works fine, then you can throw away the old one. Maybe if something goes wrong during that process, you can still replace the original one since you haven't completely deleted it. Now this is kind of an extreme measure. If you're having trouble with an application, try to solve the problem within the application, try to look at support for that application or for the developer, try to do all sorts of different things, including searching the web with your specific problem to see if you can find a solution. But if all else has failed and you really feel like you need to try something more extreme, throwing away the preference file may be the key to fixing the problem. Another reason you may want to trash a preference file is if you've deleted the application. Typically, when you uninstall an application, the preference file is left behind. This makes it easy to reinstall the application later and continue with all your preferences. These preference files are small. They're really tiny. You can see over here, some of these are just a few bytes. So taking the time to delete them after you uninstall an application, that's kind of like pulling over on the side of the highway and picking up a penny. It's just not going to be worth it. So don't worry about them normally. But if you really do want to clean up some application and get it off your computer for good, you can look for its preference files here and delete them. Also look for any folders that you may find. You can also use Time Machine to restore old preferences. So if you find that application isn't working anymore, and if you delete the preference file, now you have to start at the beginning without all the customizations you may have set up for that application, you can try using Time Machine on that library folder, going back to a preference file from an earlier time when things worked okay, and restoring your application that way. So there's a look at preference files, where to find them, what they do, and why you may want to trash them in an extreme situation where you want to fix something. Until next time, this is Gary with MacMost Now.
Want more video tutorials? Just go to MacMost.com, click on the videos link at the top of the page, and then you can view all of the hundreds of MacMost videos by category.